Who is Horus? Horus was one of the most important gods in ancient Egyptian mythology and religion. He was the son of Osiris and Isis, the grandson of the sky goddess Nephthys and the earth goddess Gaia, and the nephew of Set. His name may have originally been connected to the word for horizon. As a sky god, he represented the sun and was worshipped throughout Egypt. The Greeks identified him with their god Ares, but unlike Ares, Horus was generally regarded as a benevolent deity who brought light into people's lives. In this video, we're going to look at his origins, powers, and his war with his uncle Set. So sit back, grab yourself a ginger nut, and let's learn about Horus. Horus was one of the most widely venerated deities in ancient Egyptian religion. His cult was not only popular throughout the whole country, but also spread to Nubia and the Levant. He had many titles, including Great of Praises, Lord of the Two Lands, He who is victorious and avenger of his father. Ancient Egyptians associated him with kingship, protection, health, the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars. They also viewed him as a healer and believed that he could protect sailors and travelers. Horus was typically depicted as a man with wings, wearing a crown and holding a crook and a flail, symbols of his role as a shepherd of his father's followers. However, he was sometimes shown in animal form, such as a falcon, hawk, or dog. This is because ancient Egyptians believed that animals could be possessed by demons, and they saw them as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual worlds. So it makes sense that they would choose animals that were associated with the sun, such as falcons, hawks, and ibises. The story of Horus's birth is shrouded in mystery, and there are several versions of it. Some sources say that he was born in a city called Byblos, while others say that he was born in the city of Abydos. The earliest written account of Horus's birth comes from the Palermo stone, which dates back to the 26th dynasty. According to this account, after Osiris was killed by his brother Set, Isis collected his pieces and buried them in the ground. Then she went to live by the river Nile and gave birth to Horus there. As Horus grew up, he learned about his father's death and his mother's plan to avenge him. When he was old enough, Isis taught him the magic spells that his father had left for him, and then sent him on a series of tasks to test his abilities. One version of the myth says that Horus had to defeat 4 demons who guarded the entrance to the underworld. Another version says that he had to retrieve the staff of his father from the depths of the ocean. After completing these tasks, Horus returned home, where Isis made him immortal so that he could take on his uncle Set. When the time came for the confrontation, Horus and Set met in a field and challenged each other to a series of contests. The first contest was a battle of strength in which Set tried to gore Horus with a spear, but Horus dodged and wounded Set's eye. Enraged by the pain, Set retaliated by attacking Horus's rear, but Horus turned around and wounded Set again, this time in the rear. Seeing that he was losing the contest, Set ran away and hid in a marsh. Horus pursued his uncle and ambushed him while he was sleeping. During the ensuing battle, Horus gouged out one of Set's eyes and threw it into the sky, where it became the moon. Then he cut off Set's genitals and threw them into the river Nile, where they became the source of the annual flooding. Finally, Horus killed Set by stabbing him in the stomach with a knife made of flint. After defeating Set, Horus became the king of Egypt and ruled over the land for 42 years. During his reign, he brought peace and prosperity to his people, and he was revered as a hero. When he died, he was mummified and placed in a tomb where his body was preserved for centuries. The myth of Horus is one of the most important myths in ancient Egyptian religion because it explains how the Egyptians came to be ruled by pharaohs. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh was the embodiment of Horus and that he was chosen by the gods to rule over the land. This belief gave the pharaohs their divine right to rule, and it helped to legitimize their power. It also explains why the Egyptians worshipped Horus as a sky god. They believed that he was the one who brought light into people's lives and drove away the darkness of night. The Greek historian Plutarch wrote that some people thought that Horus was the same as the Greek god Ares, but he pointed out that unlike Ares, Horus was not a god of war. He said that Horus was a god of victory and that he was always victorious in battle because he fought for a just cause. Plutarch also wrote that Horus was the son of Osiris and Isis, but he didn't know that Set was actually the son of Nephthys and Osiris as well. He thought that Set was an illegitimate child who was born out of wedlock. The Greek writer Callimachus wrote that some people thought that Horus was the son of Osiris and Nephthys, but he didn't believe that because he thought that Nephthys was too old to have a son when Osiris was alive. He said that Nephthys was the daughter of the sky god Ra, and that she was married to the earth god Geb. Therefore, the only possible way for her to have a son by Osiris would have been if he had been conceived before Nephthys married Geb. Since there were no stories about Osiris having children before he married Nephthys, Callimachus concluded that Horus must have been the son of Osiris and Isis. So what do we really know about Horus? Unfortunately, not much. Most of what we know about him comes from the myths that were told about him. These myths were written down on papyrus and other materials, but we don't know if they're literally true or if they're just stories that were used to teach people lessons. We also don't know if Horus was a real person who lived in ancient Egypt or if he was just a figment of someone's imagination. What we do know is that he was an important god in ancient Egyptian religion and that he was worshipped for hundreds of years. Some people have argued that Horus was based on a real historical figure who lived in ancient Egypt, but there's no evidence to support this claim. It's more likely that he was a composite figure who was created out of the myths that were told about him. In fact, some scholars believe that Horus wasn't just one god, but actually a group of gods who were all associated with the sky and the sun. Over time, these gods were merged together and became known as a single deity. It's also possible that Horus was originally a minor god, who was elevated to a major deity after the New Kingdom began. This was a period of time when Egypt experienced a cultural and political revival and when many new temples were built. It's likely that Horus was seen as a symbol of the New Kingdom and that his popularity grew as a result. Overall, our knowledge of Horus is limited by the sources that we have available to us. Much of what we know about him comes from the myths that were told about him, but we don't know if these myths are literally true or just stories that were used to teach people lessons. It's also possible that Horus wasn't just one god, but actually a group of gods who were all associated with the sky and the sun. Over time, these gods were merged together and became known as a single deity. Regardless of his origins, Horus was an important god in ancient Egyptian religion, and he was worshipped for hundreds of years. So there you go, that was a quick summary of who Horus was. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel.